So, what you're about to watch is a different departure from what you're used to on my channel. Yesterday, my longtime friend, one of my closest and best friends, came over for a visit, and we were able to sit down for a couple of hours, smoke a pipe, have a conversation, and I recorded him in this conversation for a podcast episode, because there's a podcast coming out, and I wanted to record it, and I figured, if it turned out alright, then it would be a good vlog style video that I could put on my channel as well. So it's not quite what you're used to seeing, but we still do talk about pipe smoking. We also talk about his writing, as he is an author, or an aspiring author, and then there's a few interruptions with the rest of our families in the house that are edited out, and then right at the end it takes this really deep dive I'll just let you see it. This is just a precursor to let you know that this isn't your typical video, so be prepared for something different. But if you do watch it all the way through, I think you're really going to enjoy it. And if it's something that you do enjoy, there's going to be more things like this coming on the podcast setting. Whether I make it strictly a audio podcast or a video podcast such as this one, still remains to be seen. But for the time being, I hope y'all enjoy. So without further ado, here's the interview of my best friend, Dewayne Reece. So I'm just trying to get into that mode, and I just can't laugh at me when we start, because it is going to be a little whatever. But
do your thing.
So
don't laugh at you unless you're funny. I don't laugh at you.
All right.
You're not funny. I won't laugh at you.
So I'm sitting here with a really good friend of mine. We've known each other since I was about 18. So like 17 years now. Pretty long damn time.
Yeah.
And for me, coming out of the home that I was in because of my stepmom, I kind of like did the whole high school thing after high school, like experimenting with all kinds of shit and sex and drugs and rock and roll.
Like that was your true bad influence and all.
Well, no, I don't think you were. Honestly, he probably kept me from doing more shit that I shouldn't have been doing. Like, he kept me just strictly, hey, let's just drink a little bit and smoke a little bit of weed, and that's all we do. And I thought it was amazing that I was totally rebelling against everything, and I was only doing weed and drinking a little bit and not doing like meth and cocaine and shit.
So share the good stuff with you.
Whatever. So not necessarily the friend that sent me down a road or whatever, but yeah. So we go way back. We have a lot of things that in common that keep us having good, active conversations that we can pick up with that year of not talking, and it's like we were right back having the same conversation.
Because I moved here and like you moved there, and stuff like that.
Yeah, even like you moved to Georgia, what, 10 years ago?
Pretty close too. I think I'm working on like year 9.
Yeah, something a long time, and I went to the place I said I'd never go, which was Morristown, and which wasn't far from where we were when we first met, but
Right.
and then ended up in Georgia.
We both like went to Morristown for a little while. I mean, we went from small town to slightly larger town.
Right. Not exactly Atlanta, but right outside the Atlanta area.
Right.
But we have a lot of things in common as far as like musical taste, or at least we did. We still have some of those things in common, but as we've progressed and evolved as a person,
Right.
we have got other things that the other one of us doesn't have in common, and that's okay.
Right.
I still listen to a little bit heavier music, not all the time, but I still listen to some. Whereas you've moved away from that.
I have a little bit because, don't get me wrong, like, I'm just not as angry as I used to be. I've gotten a little bit older, mellowed out a little bit.
Right. Which is actually what I was just saying. Like, I can't tell you how I feel about talking about my ex-stepmom. I can't tell you how I feel in the way that you've heard me say.
Right.
Because I'm nowhere near as angry as I was when I was 18 years old, and I hated that bitch.
Well, when you get older, like, you know, things that pissed you off in your youth, you kind of let go of, and, you know.
You know, we were talking the other day, we weren't, a friend of mine was, about how people were talking about bands like Slipknot and Korn didn't sound as angry as they did when they first came out. And you're like, fucking duh, that was 20 years ago. It's hard for you to be angry about being broke and being in the slums when you're fucking 20 years a musician making millions of dollars.
Right.
You're just, like Jonathan Davis has said, in order for me to make music that sounds like what you're used to, I have to go to a dark place that I don't enjoy being at anymore.
Right. And it's just, I hate when people accuse bands of like selling out, because like as a musician, that's kind of your goal, to be successful. I mean, nobody becomes like a rock star to not be a rock star. That's just, you know.
Right.
Or a metal star, whatever genre.
Yeah. It's weird. We're in this weird point in our lives because back when we were younger, 20 years ago, whatever, 18 years ago, country and pop and metal were all kind of the same, had their own sound, whatever.
Right.
Versus now where you've got people who are getting famous because they put something on SoundCloud and now they're making whatever. So music has evolved as well as we have.
Well, it's not just like, it's also media too. I mean, there's guys that you hear on YouTube, like when I was younger, like you toured the clubs and you hoped that there was somebody in the audience from a record studio, a talent scout that saw you. Now, like, you know,
Right.
see a video on YouTube and be like, hey, I need to get in touch with that guy.
Right.
So, like, getting discovered is a little bit, I wouldn't say easier.
Oh no, it's most definitely gotten easier to be discovered now. The struggle isn't as real as it used to be. The challenge isn't there. Like, I'm sure you've heard of them. Cutthroat Shamrock.
Yeah.
Would be one of the groups that I would
Great
say
band.
was one of the last fucking bands I can remember that had to do the play every gig. Started out in a bar in Gatlinburg, just two people playing every fucking show they could, just to get noticed.
Into the van and
Right. And they're one of the last bands, and I know there's larger bands out there that do it or did it, and you just don't realize it. But for it to be a local band, that's why I can remember it. But they're one of the last bands that I still listen to that had that fucking struggle versus people now.
Well, I remember seeing Seether before, like at the. Do you remember the Blue Cat?
Mm-hmm.
Little 500-person bar. I remember seeing Seether there.
Right.
So, I'm not doing like plugging into these bands.
Right. But it's crazy. To me, it's crazy to think about how things have changed.
Mm-hmm.
And like, we are the generation that has witnessed both sides of the coin. The younger generation doesn't understand what it's like, and the older generation doesn't understand what it's like. We're the ones that saw both. And that's kind of a special category to be in.
That generation, it's like we're old enough to remember dial-up.
The 4 foot long fucking cord on the phone, so you could talk around the cord instead of now we're on the phone.
But we're young enough to where we got to benefit from, beyond dial-up.
Right.
So.
Well, kids don't play outside like they did when we were kids. Partially because you can't trust the fucking people around you, but partially because there's so much shit to entertain them.
If I had video games like they have video games now, I probably would have played outside.
Probably not, but I was a kid out there in Florida before we moved to Tennessee, and then in Tennessee that was lassoing cones and running around with a stick playing pretend that I was in Indians and Cowboys because there wasn't a video game for me to just sit down and preoccupy my time with.
I literally got a stick from my birthday one year. As a birthday present, I was given a stick, right? By my father, right? And then I got in trouble for hitting my brother with it. That stick got taken away.
Right. But my kids will never understand that. You know what I mean? So to me, that blows my mind. It's just a weird thing for us to be a part of and to be able to say.
Right.
Because they're never going to be able to say that. They're never going to be able to say, my dad used to tie an inner tube to the back of the truck and drive me at 5 miles an hour down a smelly fucking road, and I felt like we were doing 50 and enjoying every minute of it. They'll never get that experience that I got. Because I would go to jail and social services would take my children if I tied them behind my car and went out to the mailbox on my property.
Yep.
I was going down a public fucking road. It was a dirt road, but I was going down a public road on the back of this inner tube, loving life.
Yep. Riding in the back of a truck. That's a big thing now.
Right.
A friend of mine got pulled over and was told that, you got to have kids in the cab of the truck. You can't have them in the back of the truck.
Right.
We never fell out of the truck or anything.
I rode as a child, as a 10-year-old child, I rode in the back of a truck. Granted, it had a topper on it, but I rode in the back of the truck with my stepsister.
You know what we called that? And
my half-sister from Florida to Tennessee.
Oh, okay, so Florida to Tennessee. If it was local, I would have said that was a sissy catcher.
Yeah.
That's what you would call a camper, is a sissy catcher.
Right, no. We were going from Stark, Florida, which is like upper middle Florida. It's like 30 minutes from Gainesville. All the way up to the fucking mountains in Tennessee in the back of a truck, and it was a standard cab truck. So my dad and his wife rode up front in the cab with air conditioner or heat, and we rode in the back with a topper over, freezing my ass off or burning the fuck up. Like we had a fan going, or there'd be blankets. Either way. And usually, because it was Florida to Tennessee, we started out with a fan. Halfway through the trip, 12-hour trip, we switched the fan off and covered up with the blankets because that shit got cold as soon as I got up here. Yeah, up to Tennessee. So, yeah, you're going to have to keep the kids in the cab. What?
Yeah.
I would pass troopers.
Yeah, they didn't care, or they just didn't. Maybe they were lazier back then and just didn't want to do the paperwork.
At one point, I wrote on the paper just random shit. Help me, and nobody fucking called the law on us. Hey. And I was holding a help me sign in the back of a truck. If my dad knew that shit, he would have. After the cop let us go, he would have beat my fucking ass.
Dude, I got smacked once and got told that's for what you're about to do in the store. Yeah. Try that shit now. You'll have people knocking on your door.
Yeah. So.
It's one of the reasons I'm glad I don't have kids.
Alright. So this has already started going off in a direction I hadn't planned on, but that's fine. I enjoy it when it's more organic anyways. But I wanted to ask you a couple questions about your writing, and I wanted to ask you a couple questions about pipe smoking just because whatever. Like as we said before, I quit cigarettes cold turkey like 4.5 years before I picked up a pipe. So it was a completely different experience for me as for you who still smokes cigarettes. But a couple of months ago, I said, hey, you should try this out, and I gave you some stuff.
Right.
So I'm interested in your perspective of pipe smoking because it's completely different from mine in as being that I didn't have that nicotine craving until I started smoking a pipe. Because I was 4.5 years sober of nicotine. It's weird to say, but whatever. So it's different for you.
We're on script now, right?
Well, I just have bullet point questions just to try to ask to elicit those and some conversation or whatever. But do you find that smoking a pipe is better or worse than smoking cigarettes?
Worse or better? I don't know if I'd say worse or better. Like there's advantages to it for sure. Better and worse in what content? Because cigarettes are a little bit more convenient, I think, but there's just something about smoking a pipe, sitting back, relaxing, fiddling with it just helps me calm down.
Right.
Like wind down from the day. So it's more relaxing for sure.
Right. It definitely is.
Yeah.
It forces you to slow down.
Yeah.
Which in turn makes you relaxed.
Yeah. And sitting there smoking a cigarette, like it's almost like your brain still keeps going, but like when you sit down and you smoke a pipe, like your mind almost shuts off because you have like your temper and things, and then you like focus on it. It's like,
well, I feel like cigarettes are so convenient and so easy to just keep it in your mouth and keep doing stuff that you just don't think about it. It becomes second nature. The pipe forces you to not make it. I mean, tamping it stuff becomes second nature, but you still have to say, "Oh, I need to tamp that to keep going."
right.
So it's still making you slow down, whereas a cigarette doesn't at all.
Right. And I smoke less when I smoke a pipe because I pick up a cigarette, smoke a cigarette. It's so much easier to pick up another cigarette and just keep smoking.
Right.
Whereas like with the pipe, you finish your bowl, you clean out your pipe, you reload your bowl, So it really does cause you to slow down, and you smoke less because you slow down.
Right.
Right.
You still feel the same satisfaction with less pipe as you did with
the
a
cigarette.
pack of cigarettes.
Sometimes more satisfaction with the pipe.
Right.
With the cigarette.
Because you've got that, you reach that moment of clarity because you're slowed down.
Yeah.
Right. So that's why, as I was saying before, I'm kind of torn on did I replace one habit for another. I went 4.5 years without nicotine at all, and then I started smoking a pipe, and I'm like, sometimes I'm worrying about it, like, damn, like I have dip and snooze too. That's where I know it's a nicotine issue.
Right.
Because I'm still getting it when I'm not able to smoke a pipe.
Yeah.
But if I put those down, I would still be okay putting down snooze and dip. I'd still want to smoke a pipe.
Right.
So is it really the nicotine, or is it the enjoyment of slowing down?
I think it might be the enjoyment of slowing down. I mean, with cigarettes, there's definitely an oral fixation with cigarettes.
Right.
Which the pipe does replace.
Right.
Whereas the snooze, is that what you call it?
Mm-hmm.
You don't have that.
Right, because it's under your lip, and then and even with the snooze, different from dip, like American dip.
Right.
I don't have to spit, so I don't have to focus on needing to carry around a spittoon or a bottle or being outside. Right. I just don't think about it, so I don't get any sort of fixation off of the snooze because it's geared to not give you one.
Right.
So
it's kind of hard to, like, if I went from like smoking to the snooze, I don't think it would be as satisfying.
Right.
Yeah.
It's also harder for me, I think, with the snooze, which is why I still dip occasionally, because I have the plate. whereas you don't. You would get more from the snooze than I get because I'm only getting the lip side. I'm not getting the gum side. So
it's because I refuse to wear my plate.
Right. But, you know, I have to. If I don't, I can't fucking do anything. But whatever.
Well, you notice that you've not seen me bite down on the pipe?
Right.
Like, that's why. Like, doesn't go beyond my lip, really.
Right. Not me. I'll clench it. I'll chew down on it and just keep doing whatever I'm doing, you know, but that's the way sometimes it makes me slow down, and then sometimes I can smoke a pipe while I'm doing something and not think about it until it starts to bite me and I realize that I still had it in my mouth even though I wasn't smoking, and I started smoking wet and making it worse. I need to set that down, or I need to stop what I'm doing and concentrate on the pipe, one of the two.
But I definitely, like, when I'm writing, I'll burn through a pack and a half to 2 packs of cigarettes for writing, which the pipe has been great for, like, not doing that.
Right. Because you can set it down.
Right. I can set it down. It'll go out. And if I want to stop and think about where the storyline's heading, I can pick it back up, light it back up, and, you know, and then I've got that nicotine hit, and
which you're getting from the Burley,
right?
And that Sherlock Holmes, you're getting more nicotine from the Burley than you will from that one.
Right.
The Cavendish is part Burley, so you're still getting nicotine from the Inspector, but like those straight Virginias aren't going to be as strong nicotine-wise.
Like smoking cigarettes while I'm writing, it's and I can't write and not smoke.
Right.
I can't do it. It's like some writers, like they have to have that 2 fingers of whiskey or whatever. Really, my gear is cigarettes, and when I smoke cigarettes, it's an absent-minded smoke. So it's finish one, light another one.
Oh, I didn't even smoke that one. I need to smoke another one. So you light up the second one, and then
you're focusing on writing, and you're not really paying attention that you're smoking before you know it.
But maybe you're not. Maybe you're holding it in your hand because you're focusing on writing, and you've let half of it go out, which is why you lit up the second one. Because you don't have as much nicotine as your body as you think you should have.
You're not even acknowledging that you're smoking. Whereas,
right.
Again, the pipe slows you down and it makes you think about how much you're actually smoking.
Right.
Which has been like a huge eye-opener for me.
Well, that kind of answers my question. One of the questions is, does it help you with your writing? Because I guess it does.
Yeah.
So how much more are you writing now that you're smoking a pipe than you were before when you were just only smoking cigarettes?
I'm actually writing quite a bit more because, like I said, okay, some people, when they write, people do have different methods of writing. Like there's no right or wrong way to do it. There's really not. Some people like have an entire world planned out, and they know exactly where they're going to go with the plot line and all the details, and they just got to get it out on paper. Other people like me, I kind of sit down and I start writing, and where the story takes me is where I get it.
Right.
So, which can lead to problems.
Right. I had to kill off this character because I totally didn't mean for him to be there, but I didn't think about it.
Right.
Yeah.
So, stopping and smoking, and it's not that I've done more writing. I've done more productive writing.
Because you don't have to go back and erase shit and then start back over, and then erase shit and start back over. Because you're actually sitting there going, do I actually want this person in there in the first place?
Right. Do I want this to go this way? Like, this person can react to this situation 5 different ways, and you can sit back and actually think about the 5 different ways that you could go and how you want them to react to the situation.
So would you say that cigarettes are your writing kryptonite? Because it doesn't force you to slow down and think about it? Or would you say that there's something else even worse than the cigarettes that is your kryptonite that makes you not be able to write as productively as you do when you smoke a pipe?
I'm not sure. To be quite honest, never really thought about it. Like, I mean, it doesn't really hinder me. Like, I probably get about the same amount written, But I feel like slowing down and actually taking time to think about where I'm going helps.
Right.
I wouldn't necessarily say cigarettes are my kryptonite when I write. It's because sometimes you get into a flow of things.
Right.
And during that time, like, I'm not smoking the cigarettes and I'm not smoking pipe either. But when I hit that dreaded writer's block, where like nothing wants to hit the paper, sitting back, clearing my head, smoking a pipe helps with that.
Right. I found for me with the writer's block, my problem was that my brain went faster than my hand did, and I couldn't write or type as fast as how I needed it to go to get it all out.
Right.
And then as I got kids, I didn't have the time to try to get it, so time became my kryptonite.
That time is an issue when it comes to writing, and
well, there's some writers that take writecations. They call them writecations, where they take a vacation from all the distractions, but they're actually on the job writing because, you know, believe it or not, working for a living can get in the way of fucking writing because...
Well, one of the things that pipe is actually the reason I say it's more productive writing when I smoke a pipe is, and you can ask my wife this because my wife will read some of my stuff and then she'll come back and be like, and read it again, and it's completely different because I've rewritten it. And the pipe pisses her that off because she's like, you got some good shit here. Why did you change it? She calls it the dreaded rewrite.
Right.
So like,
but it happens a lot.
Yeah. So yeah, time is an issue, especially when you're like I am. You're like, oh, let's see, could have gone better. And when I smoke a pipe and I sit and think about it, I get that first go about, and I'm happy with it.
Right.
Whereas if I just sat down and just,
and then you're like, shit, that didn't work the way I wanted to. Erase.
Yeah.
But going in a different direction.
Yeah, it's like, but notes are good too. I like to take notes. Like if I'm out and about, like I don't have it with me here today, but I normally keep like a little notebook with me and a pencil and like, just like, oh, okay, that's how I want that to run. Just take out a shorthand real quick.
I used to do that, and I had so many scraps of paper and little notebooks full of shit, of notes of stuff that I just never was able to follow through.
How does this connect with this?
Right.
Yeah.
So, so would you say that you try to be more of an original writer versus writing the next Twilight or Hunger Games or something like that? Because those are all based off of books.
Right.
And even though I really hate to admit that I read the Twilight books, I did read them, but they were not as good as they were claimed to be for me.
Well, I have not read the Twilight series.
Don't waste your time.
Well,
I'm sorry to all the Twilight people out there, but don't waste your time. Like, see, I'm done.
Yeah.
And I want to smoke more, but I'm
pretty much done.
Right. So that's why I was saying I had to do it the way. I mean, I'm not done talking to you, but I'm probably actually going to put a little bit more in this. I don't want to be done yet, but I'm done.
I don't know. I think maybe if I get a little steering.
Do what?
Maybe if I get a little. Yeah. See, this is what I'm talking about right here.
The tamping it.
Yeah, like.
Yeah.
The tobacco in the bottom, like I'm not quite hitting it.
Well, the thing with it is that especially when you're preoccupied with talking or writing or whatever, it'll go out and you'll think you're done because the ash has stayed up top on the pipe.
Yeah.
So there's nothing to burn, so the cherry went out. Whenever you tamp, then you're pushing that cherry back down on fresh tobacco and you're like, hey, check this out. I still had another 10 minutes in this pipe. I didn't realize that. So, but that just comes with practice, and I feel like the reason I got to it faster than you did is because I have a problem and I go head first into things.
Yeah.
And so, like I said, in a year and a half's time, I can say I've smoked 900 balls of flakes because I have.
Right.
Whereas you're not smoking it near as much as I am. So you're still learning. You're learning at a slower rate, and I just force myself to learn faster because I went faster at it.
Right.
So.
Well, so like when I was younger, I used to be like, "No, my spirit animal is a wolf." As I've gotten older, I realize because it's a wolf, manly wolf. As I've gotten older, I realized that my spirit animal is more of a turtle.
I was going to say badger, but turtle works.
Slow, methodical. If I have to, I'll bite your ass and not let go.
Right. I too grew up thinking that my spirit animal was a wolf. I still feel like my spirit animal is a canine, but it might be Maya versus like Stella.
Fair enough.
More slow and methodical, and I'm fat, so I don't want to move much. But if I have to, I will run and I will bite, but not as much as Stella. So yeah.
But no, I kind of think it's a turtle now too, because like I've realized like slowing down and actually like taking things in the moment is a good thing.
Right. Oh yeah, which is. So I know you haven't watched any of my YouTube videos, but I just posted a video about, and I say this ironically as this video is going to go to YouTube for the podcast.
Yeah.
But I just made a video about how I have slowed down from making videos on YouTube, and how I have people are saying, I really love your channel and I really enjoy. I had this one guy leave a message on there that said, I enjoy listening to you talk about whatever it is you want to talk about on your channel. So every time you make a video, I get excited that I get to hear you talk about something that you're passionate about or whatever. So it doesn't bother me if you're not posting as much, as long as you still post something, because I like your point of view.
Right.
But like I said, in the first year, well, in a year and a half, I've made like 258 videos in a year and a half, and the majority of those came in the first year. I video, whereas now I'm like every month and a half I make a video. So I feel like the older I get, the more I'm like, you know what? Maybe except like we were talking about when we used to party back in the day versus now, we just really don't. I don't need to go full excess on it. Because I don't have to. I can enjoy other things, and we're enjoying life. We're slowing down and taking things in the moment, which is just a sign that we're getting really fucking old. But whatever, we're embracing it.
I wouldn't say I'm old yet, or I'm getting old yet.
No, I have days that I wake up and I hurt so fucking bad, and I'm like, dude, if I had just been better on my body when I was younger.
Dude. 40 is the new 30.
Right.
But,
still have 5 years.
But 9 p.m. is the new midnight.
Right.
You know?
It's so sad. The last couple of days, technically last week, because Sunday starts the new week.
Yeah.
8:30, Logan goes to bed. And 9 o'clock, I'm out of the shower, and I'm laying down on the bed, and she's already fallen asleep, and I'm watching something on Hulu or whatever on my phone. And by 9:45, I've already dropped my phone on my chest 4 times and realized I'm going to bed at 9:45 on a weekday.
Damn, I fucked up the level of Candy Crush. Yeah.
Damn it! I had to rewatch an episode of Brooklyn Nine-Nine because it fell on my chest 4 times, and I put it down. And then when I went to start the episode the next day, I was like, I don't remember any of this shit. And I had to start back over. So there are times that I can stay up till midnight.
Another crazy thing. Do you remember, like, the first phone I ever had? You gave it to me because I was living in a different city, and you were like, dude, we need to stay in touch.
Right.
Like, before that, like, I never had a cell phone. Like, I refused to have a cell phone. Do you remember what it was?
No.
It was fucking prepaid Nokia.
The very first cell phone.
Could you imagine going from a Nokia to watching a video on your damn phone?
I went, my very first phone,
crazy?
I was 17, and I bought my first AT&T prepaid phone, and it was a Nokia brick.
Yeah.
And I basically used that to play Snake because I had no service in the mountains.
Well, at least you had Snake, man. I had I think it was Brick Breaker was the game that came with my phone, which is for people that don't know, Brick Breaker is like an upgrade of Pong.
Right. Ting, ting.
Yeah.
The Atari shit, yeah. And we were fortunate enough that we came up through a time where there wasn't phones in every hand and shit didn't get posted to social media and YouTube, because all the stupid shit that we used to do growing up would probably have gotten us into trouble had it hit YouTube.
That's the thing too. I don't think things have gotten bad or worse. I honestly think people are just more aware of it now.
It's more publicized.
Right.
Yeah.
Because, like I said, you pick up your phone and just...
Which is why we can't drive down the street with our kids in the back of the truck anymore, because... Right. Oh my God! Yeah. So, whatever.
Burn your ass alive on social media for that one.
I mean, I pretty much quit getting on Facebook, because I call it Drama Book. And realistically, the only reason I'm on it still is so that I can keep up with when my chapter is going to have a club meeting.
Right. Same thing here. Our friend groups will have a party or something, and hey, come to my son's second birthday party or something like that. Is the only reason I'm on Facebook, because they like to do Facebook with me.
Right.
Because nobody just calls you up and invites you. So.
It's so much easier just send a text and be like, hey, I'm driving down the street, but I wanted to talk to you at the same time. But whatever. I'm also talking to somebody else, so instead of... I'm having to yell at my kids, so instead of being on the phone with you, I'm going to text you. Yeah, so...
Okay. So I haven't dodged your originality question there. As far as I've actually been sitting here thinking about it as we were talking.
Yeah.
And I know original is kind of a strange concept, because
it's hard to do anything original anymore.
Right. I mean,
everything's been touched on.
A lot of stuff's been touched on. But as far as original goes, everything influences and you can see it your own way. So maybe it may be like this, but it is your original view on how.
Right. You could be talking about vampires and werewolves, but it doesn't necessarily mean you're talking Twilight.
Right.
It's your take on it.
That's the other thing too. You can write for yourself stuff that that you enjoy doing, but you also write for an audience. So
right.
You kind of want it to be as, you said earlier that you didn't much care for Twilight, but there are people out there that really love those books and really love those movies.
Yeah, and most of them are, not to sound sexist, but most of them were chicks, but still.
Well, it had an audience, and
right.
It sold, and the book sold well enough to make movies out of, so, it might not be my cup of tea particular, but...
Right, but there's an audience for just about everything.
Right.
I actually, the other day, I sent her a text and I said, I don't know where it came from. Maybe it was because when I was on Pinterest, I used to get these little writing things that would help inspire you to do something.
Right.
And it said, imagine that you walk into a room and you see a vampire. But it's not like your Twilight vampire. It's the scaly, fanged, hunched over, skeleton wing vampire that...
Kind of Nosferatu?
Huh?
Nosferatu type stuff?
Yeah, that will run out and attack you, but instead of feeding on blood, it feeds on your memories. No, that doesn't sound familiar? Well, let me repeat myself, but reword it. Have you ever had deja vu?
No.
How do you know? But so that steered me into thinking, okay, so what if we see the world in black and white, and the only time, from the time we were born till the time we hit our true soulmate, everything is in black and white. Once you meet your soulmate, you start seeing things in color. However, vampires see everything in color all the time, and this one vampire that decided one time, hey, I'm going to fucking chow down on you. Instead, lost his ability to see things in color, and you got it. So you think it's your soulmate, and the vampire's pissed off at you because you took his abilities or their ability to see in color. And then to throw into the mix that there's actually a third person who is your soulmate, but you don't know that because you're fixated on the vampire who hates you for taking his vision of color. I was like, that to me just sounds like if I can work it right, I think that would be a good book.
That could be interesting.
It's still dealing with vampires, but it's my take on
vampires,
the vampire thing. Like, it's just a different spin.
Right. Well, that's what I mean about originally. I mean, a lot of things have been touched on and done, and some things have been done to death and then redone to death. And so,
like the Spider-Man movies.
Right. So, like,
how many interpretations of the origins of Spider-Man do we have to go through before we just get to a good movie?
So, yeah, I mean, like, original content, that's,
Right. It's hard to come up with original.
Right.
But is it, I guess what you said, is it your take on a topic?
Right.
Right. Do you have any other friends who are writers as well? And if so, do they help you in becoming a better writer? Is there feedback from...
I do have friends that are other writers. And we don't necessarily discuss storyline because it's sort of different genres. Because, like, I like doing with superhero fantasy type storylines, and they run in a different genre. So we don't really talk storyline that much. But we talked about publishing houses, publication, the process of going through it, and sometimes how difficult it can be, especially if you're pitching something and you don't have a finished book.
Right.
It's because sometimes the publicist wants you to go a certain way with it that you necessarily don't want to go. It's like...
I heard Dax Shepard say on a podcast episode that he does not read scripts or talk to actor friends about scripts that they're reading and movies that they're partaking in while he's in the writing stages of his movies, because he's afraid that he'll remember some of those details
and it'll influence his writing.
Right.
Yeah.
And think that it's original to him, and it's not. He's duplicating something that's really close to coming out at the same time.
Then you pissed off one of your friends because they're like...
So I would assume that you're doing the same thing, as y'all aren't talking topic as much as finishing.
Right. Exactly.
Because you're not trying to impart your shit into each other's stories.
Right.
So I could see that.
You don't be like, dude, you ripped me off.
Right. So the book that you're writing now, how long do you think it'll be before it's done?
It won't be. It won't be.
Are any of the books that you're writing ever going to be finished?
No.
Damn it.
None of them.
Because I am waiting. There was one that I started reading 10 years ago?
Well, so here's the deal. When, if I manage to finish one, then I'll have 4 finished, because that's what I was working on 4.
Because you just do a piece of one at a time.
Yeah.
So that kind of goes into my next question. If and when you do finally get finished with 4 of them, is it something you're going to try to publish and make it available to the public, or is it something that's going to stay in your personal library and I might get the chance to read it, but so Joe Schmo won't?
I would like to get it out there and get published, but there's some things that you write that's just for yourself, that's your baby, and it's hard to get let go of, but
right.
You have to kick it out into the world anyway, which is hard to do.
It's kind of your kid, but it's kind of not. Like, at some point you're just
No,
done with
it's
your
mine.
kid and you want to kick it out.
It's my kid.
Right, but at some point
No one else is allowed to have it, but they need to have it.
But at some point you have to let your kids go, versus you don't have to let that book go if you don't want to. So it's kind of your kid, but it's kind of not. It's a little bit more special to you.
Some stuff will probably wind up staying in the wall forever.
I only have 2 more questions. Do you think that someone can be a writer if they don't feel emotions strongly?
Yes.
Do you?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. People need stereo instructions, man.
It's not what I meant. I hate it when you do this shit to me. I mean, would you not say that you're somewhat of an emotional guy? Like, we just sat here and talked about how we're not as angry as we used to be. That's still a fucking emotion.
Dude, I watched Dumbo the other day and cried.
So that's what I'm saying. Can someone who watches Dumbo not cry?
What I'm saying is, like, if you want to write and you want to write more than stereo instructions, then yes, you need to be an emotional person.
Jerk. And then the last question is, if you could tell your younger writing self anything, what would it be?
I could tell myself, younger self, anything as a writer, what would it be? Store things in a fireproof environment.
That's a really good tip to give this to a writer, yeah.
I lost 2 books that way that were actually complete.
I don't know about fire, but flood. Kind of, for me, it's flood proof as well, because I lost a book that I was halfway through because it got wet. Like, logged.
Yeah.
Waterlogged wet. So, yeah, that's probably good advice.
But you can edit it out. If you want a more even flow with that, like, next time send me the questions in advance. And we won't have so much of a pause, and we won't have to, like, edit stuff out as much.
Well, see, that's where I was torn on. Do I let people read?
Think about stuff like that.
Right. But do I let people read the questions I'm going to ask and let them have time to prepare, or do I hit them with it and get that genuine reaction to it? So that's kind of where I'm like...
It's kind of like speed versus natural.
Right. There's a buddy of mine that I'm going to do another one-on-one like this with, but it'll be over the computer because he's in Texas. He's ex-Army, and I think he was a medic or something, and I'm going to talk to him about his experience. And when he came back, he kind of did like Chris did for a little bit.
Right.
The only difference being is that his wife didn't leave him, and so he actually had his kids there. And so
I wish we could have got Chris to open up a lot more.
Yeah, for sure. Like, I tried, and he just didn't. But he went through the whole thing where he's a stay-at-home dad, and he has been for about 2 years because he just couldn't keep the job down. He got so angry and he had such issues.
Mm-hmm. Well,
but she's supporting, like, he's going through the VA and stuff. So she's the one working, and he's just getting his government disability, whatever thing. He gets his Army check.
It really sucks too, because like in Chris's case, like, he got told, hey, you're a hero for going overseas and doing what you're doing, and then came back here, was having problems finding a job, and then getting put in jail for not paying child support because he couldn't find a job. And
not only are you a hero, but you're not good enough to see your kids. I want child support. You're going to go to jail because you can't hold down a job. Yeah, it was just those. I want to say 1-2 punch, but it was like this. It was like this 12 combo punch that just really put him down.
Because like not only was he dealing with that, he was dealing with the things that had happened overseas, and So like, I mean, I don't want to say he had the whole world on his shoulders, but
to him
he had like all kinds of weight dragging him down, and he wanted to put on that brave face and smile and make everybody laugh, and the whole time he was dealing with that on the inside. And
it took me a while, but for the first couple of years, I had this tremendous amount of guilt because I felt like he was able to survive despite all that shit when I was there to help him. And it wasn't but a few months after I moved out and moved in with her that he was done. And I know I'm not supposed to feel that way, but for the first couple of years, I really had a hard time, and it was also hard. Like, how was I supposed to talk to you about the stuff that I was feeling? Because he was literally your brother and only like a brother to me. How can I make it feel like my shit was worse than yours? So I just didn't talk about it for a couple of years. And
here's the deal too, because I know both of us came from bad family situations when we were younger.
Right.
So with him, there was, when things went down, there was not only I failed him by not being able to be there, and like he didn't feel like he could talk to me about it and things like that. There was also, I got out before he did in a bad family situation. So, and he was kind of stuck there. So, like, I had survivor's guilt from that. On top of the guilt of, and I don't know how much of he was dealing with that before even enlisting in the Army.
Right.
So, I mean, because when we got together, like I said, we didn't talk about stuff like that. It was just like, have fun. Just, we didn't deal with the issues that we had with our stepmom. And
just ride around on the back of his motorcycle with the oversized helmet and go hang out at my house and shit. Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know how much of that was like eating at him before he even enlisted. So.
See, and that was just, I've gotten better with it. I'm not saying that I think about him less, but I don't feel as guilty as I did.
One of the things that's helped me with it is, honestly, it's one of those, I hate to say it, but it's almost like dealing with a drug addict. I can't make them stop using drugs. I could make him talk to me.
Right.
He had to want to talk to me and feel safe enough to talk to me.
Well, it's like we were saying in there while we were eating, was you can only help someone for so long, and then if they don't want to help themselves, there's nothing else you can do.
Right.
And I hate to feel like that's what it came to, but...
Well, I can understand why he felt like he couldn't talk to us about it, though.
Right.
We weren't there. We didn't go through it with him. I think maybe if he had people that he could have talked to about it and related with it about, that he might have been more apt to, I don't know, maybe open up a little bit.
I think that might have been part of the thing too, is that he moved back to Tennessee. So not only was he away from his boys, who he couldn't see anyways, even if he had stayed in Kentucky, but he was also away with people that were in his unit.
Right.
That came to his funeral and like the I hate to say the black dude, but the black guy that was in his unit with him, that he showed us videos of them pretending like they were stealing TVs out of an alley in Afghanistan.
Right.
Just to have that light heart. If he had been around those guys, maybe it would have been a little bit different. And I tried to be that guy for him, but I can't.
They say when you go through something like that, and like I said, I've never been in the military. I've never been part of a unit like that. But they say that because of the things that they go through, it forges a brotherhood unlike any other.
Right.
And I mean, he just didn't have that when he came back because, like you said, he went back to Tennessee and he wasn't around.
Right. I wish he had went to the VA or something, because then he could have hung out with some people even though they weren't from his unit.
Well, they say group things like, I don't like to say AA because I don't really, but it's easier for like alcoholics to open up around other alcoholics because they've been through similar experiences.
Right.
So maybe if like he had a support group like that, he might have opened up a little bit more.
Well, see, that's like the guy that I will be doing the interview with in Texas. He does go to the VA, so he's working through those issues that he got from being overseas.
Right.
But he's also got the 5 of us that make the 6 that talk on Boxer every single day. Right. And granted, we don't always talk about just pipes and tobacco. We just to talk about anything else that if he's not at the VA, then he can talk to us, not necessarily about what's bothering him, but to distract him from it.
Right.
And
well,
That's what I'm going to talk to him
had
about.
distractions, but they were negative distractions.
Right, he had the drugs and shit he was doing.
Yeah.
And
Well,
the
no,
people
that,
he
like,
was that put him down that path and shit.
Right.
Yeah. So, but that's what I'm going to talk to Corey about is those instances you had, how difficult it was, how you feel now. Like I have a big list of questions and stuff like, how do you feel that being in the military made you more of a uniformity type person because you're used to being told what to do and everybody looking the same and whatever.
Right.
And so I felt like for him versus you not letting you see the questions, I gave him the option to look at some of them to see if it was something he could handle.
Right. Well,
and,
that's the thing. You don't know, like, a level of PTSD that, you know, what could be triggers, what might not be triggers.
Right. And he was like, you know what? I don't have to look at them as long as you're not asking me, like,
I mean, I'm sure
things that I've seen happen to my buddies over there,
Right.
body parts and shit, I'll be fine.
Yeah.
And, you know, for me, knowing Chris, that's not questions I put in there because I knew that would be something that would, because that's not something we ever talked about. He didn't like playing like Call of Duty and shit with me when he came back because it reminded him too much. So we didn't. We did Minecraft and
I wasn't over there. Like I wasn't over there with him, and it's hard for me to watch like military movies now because like war movies and such.
That movie that they did where the guy was like the best sniper or whatever overseas and then came back. It was a dude who played in the movie where he took the shit and opened his brain up. Limitless.
Yeah.
The guy who starred in Limitless.
Right.
He starred in this true story about this soldier who finally came back. Like he just kept going back over because he had no place except for being in the military.
Right.
And then he started.
Well, that's why Chris re-enlisted the second time.
Right. Because he didn't have anything else to do. And so he started working with other veterans that were suffering with PTSD and giving them something else to do besides shooting people.
Right.
He was giving them another outlet of doing stuff, and one of the guys he was helping actually killed him, shot him in the head, and then killed himself.
Right.
And so after that happened, you know, on the way to the burial ground, like the fire department had like the big American flag on the overpass, and I'm watching this movie with them, and it's like 2 years after.
Yeah, it's
and
hard
it
to watch,
choked
wasn't
me
it?
the fuck up, dude. I like almost broke down crying. There was literally like 2 years after I was at work in the factory on second shift. Maybe I was working midnights or I was working a 12-hour shift, so it was late at night. That I actually went into the bathroom and I broke because my buddy had texted me something about not being able to see his dad or something, and it just triggered something in me, and I legitimately broke down crying my fucking eyes out on the shitter at work in the factory. I wasn't actually in there doing anything. I just was hiding from everybody so that I could have this cry and get it out because I just hadn't processed it. I didn't.
It's good to do that. Like I know it's like, you know, the generation that we came from is like, you know, you get your arm chopped off and you're not supposed to cry.
You just keep fucking going, sissy. Yeah.
Put that shit on some bus.
Yeah.
But it's one of those like, you know, it's good to actually, even if you need to do it privately, which I know most guys would prefer to do it privately.
Right.
I know anyway.
Right.
But it's good to let that emotion out.
I cried because it was on a Sunday, and I'll remember it for the rest of my life. I had to go in and close the kitchen at Sagebrush, and it was like noon, and Charla called me and said, "Hey, I just heard it over the scanner at your address. Something just happened to Chris." And I was like, "Nah, whatever. I just saw him yesterday."
So like, you had the same reaction when I was told it, because like there was like a disbelief to it. Like, nah,
right,
you're fucking with me.
Well, see, I tried so hard. I was off Saturday. I had worked Friday night, and I was a volume, so I left at like 9 o'clock. He wasn't working. He was there drinking, and he had just saw the girl that was fucking with him. And I was like, dude, just come to my house. We can get drunk, and you can be at my house and be around somebody. He's like, nah, dude, I want to just stay here in Newport. I'm good. I didn't see him Saturday, and when I texted him Saturday, he was all hungover and shit from partying too much the night before. So we didn't talk that much. And then Sunday, I got the call, and I was like, you're fucking lying to me.
Well,
I just literally talked to him 12 hours ago on the phone.
That's the thing. Like, we were talking about, like, he was going to come down to, like, a week before. He was going to come down to Georgia, spend a little bit of time down here with us. I mean, we had stuff worked out. We were going to come and get him. And then, like, 3 days after we made those plans, he was like, nah, I'm going to stay here in Newport.
Right.
I was like, okay, are you sure? Is everything okay? I said, no, man, I'm fine.
That's exactly what he told me.
Yeah.
And the last time I saw him was that Friday, and when I came out the back door to smoke, he ran up and jumped into my arms off the ground, typical Chris fashion, and just, I mean, I've told everyone, anyone that I have told about Chris, I have not called him by Chris, I've just told him it was my brother. Right. Because that's literally how we were. Mm-hmm. And so Charla calls me, and then Sharon calls me as I'm getting dressed to say that she had heard about it. And so she's getting dressed with me, and another friend of mine from the club who had stayed the night instead at our house instead of Chris, and because he'd just come over. And so we went to Newport. And I pulled up, and there was cops everywhere, and they were still in the back. And at the time, I thought he had like jumped off of my truck. I didn't know he jumped off of Mom's car. So I was like, "What the fuck are y'all doing here?" And I went to walk back, and they stopped me. Like, "No, you can't. They're just putting them in the bag to put them in the thing to take them to the hospital." I was like, "You're fucking lying." And then I watched the thing go by, and I just turned to Charla, and I looked at her, and she was like crying, and it just hit me, and I was, this can't be fucking real. And then I just like broke down with Charla and cried. But then we went to the hospital, and I was fine. Like, I wasn't fine, but like I couldn't do that because I had to be strong for Mom. And then there was the funeral, and then I worked the 2 days. So I worked a Monday, Tuesday before the funeral on Wednesday. I shouldn't have, because I was a total fucking wreck, and it was the worst 2 days I'd ever had at a job.
So, like, okay, I'm going to ask you something because I went through it, and I'm wondering if it was just me or if you went through it too, because, like I said, my brother, your brother. Well,
that's why this is the first time we've had this conversation, because how do I talk to you about someone who is your brother, about someone who is only like my brother?
I kind of feel bad about it now, because I'm like, I don't know how about that. I cycled through a shit ton of emotions. Like, there was, you know, sad, some emotions that, like, I don't even know if there's words for.
Right.
You know, but I got really, really angry.
Yes.
Like,
I was so fucking mad.
I was so mad.
That's why I'm saying I shouldn't have worked those 2 days. I had to. Like, I was in there like, you don't understand. The only reason I'm fucking in here is to help my mom pay for her funeral. Because fuck all of y'all. I was so mad that I was there, and the dishwasher that was there had just fucking started. And when he found out what was going on, he's like, dude, I literally just did this a year ago, and it was a stranger that gave me a fucking hug.
Right.
But up to that point, I was so fucking mad at everybody, at everything. I just, like, she was like, please don't go there. Because she knew I've had those bouts of depression, and she was like, please don't go down that route. I'm afraid I'm going to lose you if you do that.
So, like, I mean, I was so mad. And, like, the worst part of it was I didn't have anywhere to point it. I didn't feel like I was justified pointing that anger at anybody. I can be like, it's your fault, it's your fault. You know? I didn't have anywhere to put it. I just had to feel it and then let it go.
I think that was part of my problem was with not talking to you about it sooner, was because I felt so responsible for the first couple of years. I didn't want you to feel like I was responsible too and hate me for it. So instead of saying, hey, I really need to talk to you because this thing is bothering me, I just didn't, because what if you ended up hating me for it and then I lost 2 friends instead of just 1?
It was at that time, it was a lot for me to process too, because there was my granddad. I lost him. Then I lost my dad.
Yep.
Then I lost Chris.
Yep.
Then I lost my sister.
Yep.
And then there was all the other issues going on with my other sister. So there was all kinds of, and I don't know how I would react if you would have came to me at that point and been like, hey man, we need to talk about this. I'm like, honestly, I might have told you to go fuck yourself because of the headspace that I was in. I need to deal with this on my own.
And that's where I was
Anyway.
like, how do I talk to someone it was actually his brother who's dealing with it, about someone who is like my brother? It's totally different. I didn't grow up with him and stuff, but I mean, we went through so much through such a short amount of time.
Right. Well, that's the thing that, like, Chris had this ability to, like, I don't know how he did it, but, like, you could spend, like, 20 minutes with Chris and he made you feel like he'd known you his entire life.
Right. He was amazing for that.
Yeah.
And it's something I miss
Yeah.
a lot. So.
Even like it's funny how like you even the little annoying shit that used to get on your nerves all the time.
And there was so many annoying little things that would get on your nerves.
Yeah, it's amazing how you actually miss that.
Yeah. Like I told you, I legitimately tied him to his bed to get him to leave me the fuck alone.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, damn, I would give anything to have that back for a day.
Yeah.
So, I hate that we went down this really deep, dark path at the end of this before you leave. But I am trying to cut it off.
Well,
I appreciate you sitting down with me to talk and do this podcast episode with me. I'm going to turn on. We can keep talking, but I'm going to shut this off because I know you're trying to get ready to go. And that was really deep down the rabbit hole for the end of the.
Yeah, I kind of went like jumped off the high dive there for a minute and hit the bottom of the pool, didn't we?
Yeah, that was. Whew. Now I'm wondering how much of this I have to edit out.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm going to shut this. We can keep talking, but I'm going to shut this off.
All right.
Thank you for sitting down with me and having this.
I'm glad to do it.
Yeah. All right, so I hope y'all enjoyed that conversation that I got to have with my friend Dewayne. It kind of got a little deep and emotional there at the end, but I just felt like it was too real and too good to edit out. It was a really cathartic conversation that I got to have with him. So I hope y'all enjoyed it. If you did, hit the like button or leave me a comment and let me know. I know it was a little long, but it's a different format than what I normally do. Thank you in advance for all critique, positive or negative, to help us do better on the next one. Be on the lookout for the next one, because there will be another one coming soon. Also, let me know if you would rather only listen to it on a podcast, on an audio podcast, or if you liked it being on YouTube as well. All your feedback is helpful. Thank you for watching. Hope y'all have a great one.